Only buy the finest tea leaves. Zesta. See BOPF.
If BOPF is indicated on the pack.
Zesta, the art of tea.
Orders under the Sri Lanka Press Council law were passed in Parliament today. While a vote was not called for on amendments to the Section 30 of the Sri Lanka Press Council law, the chair asked that a note be made of the objections raised by the opposition. The editorial of the Island newspaper today paid special attention towards reports that the government is attempting to put forward a code of media ethics to Parliament. The editorial reads, quote, "The government has evinced a keen interest in media ethics. It is apparently in a mighty hurry to introduce a code of ethics for journalists in keeping with its laptop and stick approach to control the so-called fourth estate," unquote.
The editorial of the Island newspaper today also questioned if the government has chosen to use a stick in the form of ethics in dealing with the media because its method of distributing laptops has failed to yield the desired results. The editorial also questioned the role politicians have to play with media ethics. The editorial reads, quote, "The hands of some SLFP, UNP and JVP politicians are dripping with journalists' blood," unquote.
There is no democracy in the world in which the government legislates on media ethics. If there has to be some charter, some regulatory framework with regard to media ethics, it must come from within the media itself, from within the profession, from within the industry.
The editorial of the Island newspaper also notes that dozens of journalists have died violent deaths at the hands of politicians during the last few decades. The editor says, "There is no difference in our book between politicians extolling the virtues of ethics and prostitutes pontificating on chastity."
සදාචාරය නිර්වචනය කරන්නේ කොහොමද? ඔවා කියන්නේ ඒ තමයි එක එක්කෙනාට අර්ථකථනය කරන්නේ.
How to define ethics? It can be interpreted differently by different people. If we look at history, the experiences of vesting the power of deciding on ethics with any authority have not been good. We can say that this will create a situation where limitations are imposed on the media.
The editor also highlights the alarming rate at which parliamentary standards are deteriorating. He notes that slanging matches and fisticuffs pass for debates in Parliament today. The Island editorial asserts a strong point by saying, "Local council members are busy sexually assaulting women and roughing up the guardians of the law." It adds, "The worst culprits are the UPFA politicians who have risen above the law by virtue of being at the beck and call of their political masters."
More fundamentally, what is the ethical right that the government, any government, has to legislate on media ethics? Who then will legislate on the ethics of the government? We know that there are politicians who have been taken in for questioning on murders. I know of no Sri Lankan journalist who has been charged with murder. But how then can a ruling coalition legislate on ethics for the media? What is the basis of this?
The editor further notes that if the government is so keen to set ethical standards for journalists by decree, the UPFA pundits should make the state media adopt their code of ethics first. Today's editorial concludes with this: "Before laying down ethical guidelines for the media, the government ought to bring to justice those who have assaulted and killed journalists and carried out arson attacks on newspaper offices and TV stations."
Now, the Sri Lankan media must inform the Commonwealth Press Union, the Commonwealth Press Institute, and every media association and professional body in every country of the Commonwealth about what is going to happen to the media in Sri Lanka. Now, Thomas Jefferson was often criticized by the press of his time. But President Jefferson said that if he had to make a choice between the government on the one hand and the media, the press, on the other, he would always opt for free press. Now, he said that because he knew that press freedom is far more fundamental to a healthy democratic society than a government. Governments come and go. But press freedom is fundamental.